Hello, and welcome to another edition of Sun Dragon Tips and Tricks. My cat is unhappy because he can't get back out. I'm Rebecca. I'm the owner of Sun Dragon Art and Fiber in Brevard, North Carolina, and today I thought we'd go on a field trip of sorts. I have just finished my Jupiter crop by Caitlin Hunter. I'm pretty happy with the size and the fit, but it is not blocked yet. I thought I would show you how I block a sweater. I have not done a video yet on blocking a shawl. That can be a little bit different because that we can be trying to really stretch and grow and all this kind of stuff. For this, we want to be really careful and particular about how it's blocked. Now, for people who've never done blocking before, blocking refers to the first time that your knitted or crocheted item is washed, you have a chance to really shape and settle your stitches. And there's many different ways to do this. You can steam block, you can spray. I am a really big fan of wet blocking, which involves fully soaking. And so I'm going to show you the process that I do, which involves fully soaking the garment and then actually throwing it in the washing machine. It's kind of fun, but only on spin. Only on spin. This is 100% wool. Again, I'll get up so you can see. This is 100% wool. I do not want to put it in the washing machine on anything that's going to agitate it too much. Just the spin cycle. Heat and agitation are what lead to something felting and not becoming the right size. The washing machine can still be an effective tool when you're blocking if you're careful with your settings. So I'm very happy with this, the size of this. I don't necessarily want to change. I don't want it to grow too much. So I need to be very careful with that. So I'm going to share with you the tips of what I do to make sure that it will hopefully be a size that fits me well, because I already like it like this, but I think the stitch definition of the stranded color work could settle more and look a little nicer. So I'm wearing it right now so y'all can see what it looks like pre-blocked, and we can compare it to post-blocking, which will probably not be until tomorrow morning. Right now it is Monday morning. This is the status of my Jupiter crop. And let's lead you through all the different steps that I take to block and make sure that it comes out, hopefully, it's not an exact science, but hopefully something that I'm going to wear over and over and over again. Let's get to it. All right, so I have most of what I think I'm going to need to block this sweater right here, except for a few tools I will show you downstairs. I have my sweater. This is what I'll need for upstairs, for the blocking part itself when I am done getting it wet. So I have my pattern here, I have my sweater, I have my knit blockers, which have combs of different sizes. I'll show you some close-ups of these if I can. One has only 4 pegs and one has 8. We have a variety of sizes here. I have T-pins. That is what the knit blockers can replace, but also you can use them together. If you run out of knit blockers, or if you don't have knit blockers, or if you need something more delicate, like delicate pinning for picots on shawls, things like that. So I have these here. I have measuring tape. And we have a lot of really cute, we don't necessarily have the thick stuff like that in the shop, but we have a lot of cute retractable measuring tape. This is just what I found close by. And I have my blocking pads. Now, we have these from Coco Knits. We also have them from Knitter's Pride makes them. You'll find a lot of different resources for blocking. I like blocking with blocking pads on a nice firm surface. Not everyone can get up and down off of the floor. You can block on a bed top if you want. One of the things that Liz and I recommend is when you're blocking on top of something that is fabric itself and has layers to it, that can be good to absorb the moisture, but that also can keep it from drying faster. The foam pads, even the ones with some little bit of felt on top, can help it dry faster because the water won't be absorbed into here, it'll wick away. You also, one of the hacks, if you don't have the fancy pads like these, are you can put a trash bag or a plastic sheet between the surface you're pinning into and your garment. That could also help if, say, your one place to block it is pushing pins into the carpet. Putting a plastic sheet between it will not only help it dry faster, it will protect from all the yuckiness in your carpet soaking into your knitted or crocheted garment. You need to have something, in theory, that you can pin into. You could use the top of an ironing board if it's a small item. What I like about these is you can arrange them in all different sizes. So I'm going to do that in just a second. The first thing, though, that I'm going to do is I'm going to measure. I liked how this fit on me. So I'm going to take the measurements of it right now while it's dry before I get it wet. Because that is something, when you get it wet and it's heavy wet, we're going to try to avoid that. I'm showing you some tricks for that. But if it's heavy wet, it might start to change shape. So actually, let's do this first. I'm also going to look at the measurements in my pattern here to see what it recommends and if I'm even close. Because if I'm close, then I can use those measurements. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to start setting out my blocks in an order and size that should fit my sweater. Most of these come in 12-inch by 12-inch sizes. And I've got a ton of them here in my Cocoa Knits pack. I'm going to try 3x3 right now. I made my Jupiter crop longer than directed, but still shorter than a regular sweater. So I'm going to see if this will work, or if I need to lay more of them out. I like using these with a little bit of a felted side up. Liz likes doing them the other way around. They both work. I'm just making sure there's enough space here. Again, you want a surface that you can push your pins into if you need to. Sometimes when you block, you don't need to pin it down. Even if this doesn't need to change shape, I may need to pin it down because my cat will roll on it. So I am going to take a few measurements, and I might need to write them down. This is about 21 inches across. I'm going to open up a Word document here. So I've just written down my torso or chest is 21 inches across. The back to the bottom is 21 and a half. If I want to get some more length out of that, I can work with that. The front, which is dropped down more, that's 19 and a half. When I lay it out, like bottom of cuff to bottom of to cuff, I'm getting 31. More important is my collar to my cuff is 14 inches. And how big around my arms are, that's about 6 and a half. Okay, and then I'm also going to measure things like underarm to cuff is 4 inches. And underarm to bottom ribbing is 11 inches. So that when it's wet, I know if I'm going way over these measurements and it's going to come out huge. Don't necessarily want that. So I'm also going to check while I'm here what the finished measurements are for my size of what she wants it blocked to see if I came out close. So she's got a design here with, you may not be able to see it from far away, but you should pay for her pattern anyway. She's got marked out the torso, which I just measured, but all the way around. I measured across the front half. I'd have to double that. She's got the sleeve circumference, the bottom, she has bottom of both if you decide to taper it. I did not. And the size of the collar up here. I actually didn't measure that. Let me measure that real quick too. That's about 9 inches across. So let's take a look. And again, I was doing measurements straight across. Measurements around, I'm going to have to roughly double. For my size, chest circumference, she has at about 48. And I had mine, I know, Katie, I had mine at 21, which is about 42. My chest circumference came out. I mean, there's a little bit when it's folded over like this that it'll be a little bit more. So I have some wiggle room in there if I want a little more wiggle room when I block it out. Waist circumference, not doing that. Sleeve circumference for my size was 15.25. And I measured, everything of mine is a little bit tighter than the size that I think I made. That's a big think I made. But I liked how it fit. So I'm going to go with those measurements. That's another thing. If you like how it fits before you block it, be sure to measure. Because it could be that your gauge is a little different than it was when you started. Or you could have some wiggle room if it's a little tight and you want a little more space in it. So I have done my measurements pre-blocking. Let's go see what the first and following steps are once we actually start the blocking process.
So here's one of the most essential tools in my blocking repertoire is just a little plastic basin. And this I will be using to soak my garment. I have blocked small to very big things in this little basin right here. I'm going to start putting some lukewarm to cold water in here. You can do it warmer. I don't recommend going super hot. And I'm going to fill it up, not to the top because water displacement, once I put my sweater in there, it will squish water out. But I'm going to fill it up pretty well. I'm going to leave it in here for right now in case I want to put some more water on top of it. But in goes my sweater. Whoops, maybe I should level this out a little bit. Hard to, I didn't bring my stand in here. Yeah, I can still put a little more water on top of this. And I'm going to gently squeeze as it goes. That is probably enough for right now. Not used to doing this with one hand. Probably should have brought my whole setup in here. I'm going to gently squeeze. See, this side you can already see is a lot darker because it has been gathering up water already. Gently push. I am not going to wring. I'm not going to do anything that's going to super distort my stitches or pull them in fun directions. And I'm going to leave it in here probably about 10, maybe 20 minutes. I may flip it a couple of times during this so I really get both sides saturated. So you can see this isn't like fully enclosed over the top water. I could put more water in here. However, my piece is probably going to want to float a little bit regardless of what I do, which is why I will do some gentle pushing. See, getting some of those air bubbles out. And at least once during this, I'll flip it over. Smell that wet wool. That's a very distinctive smell. I don't think I mentioned before I started this, I did weave my ends in. You don't always have to. I did weave my ends in on the underside. I probably should have showed y'all, but it's wet now. I wove them in just to close any gaps up so that that wouldn't be distorted by blocking. But I left my tails a good inch or two long in most places because this may stretch it a little bit and they may pop out a little bit. But I did weave my ends in ahead of time. All right. I'll meet you by the washing machine in about 20 minutes. So I am down in my laundry room and this is still blocking and I'm going to have to get the cat off the washing machine to do what I'm going to do next. But I'm letting this soak for the last few minutes. And what I would do if I wasn't using the washing machine, if you don't feel comfortable using the washing machine for this, please don't drink my blocking water. You can dump it out in the sink and gently squeeze. Again, do not wring it because that can muck your stitches. Just gently squish the water out that you can. Gently, gently. And then roll it up in towels. And then squish as hard as you can. Make what I call a project burrito. Squish as hard as you can. Stomp on it if you need to. And if you've soaked a towel through, use another towel. Keep going. I really had to get my cat off of here. Keep going until you've gotten out as much water as you can. But here is the secret. You can use your washing machine for this. Be sure to only use the spin cycle. You will not hurt even 100% wool things. This is 100% organic merino. It will not, it's not superwash. And I'm about to put it in the washing machine. First thing I'm gonna have to do is get the cat off. Come on. Okay. Again, doing this with one hand is gonna be fun. So, be careful if you just dump the water and everything in, which you can, it may splash back up in your face. Just be ready for that. And try to be as gentle as I can. Flop. And then I'm going to try to just ease this out. We don't really want it in one big lump. There's no way to put this in where it's not going, you can't stretch it all the way around. That's going to stretch it out. But I'm easing it out so it's not just in one big lump. But there it is in there. I'm going to very carefully put this on any of these, just on the spin cycle. If you're worried, you can put it one more notch in. But this is just on the spin cycle. It's still spinning. I'm just going to let it do its thing, and I will join you on the other side. So I should explain while this is spinning, because some people have the concern, isn't that going to felt it? Felting takes heat and agitation. And you can think that this spinning is agitation. First of all, it's not heat. And second of all, it's not rubbing things up against each other a lot. It's just centrifugal forces going on. So think about if you ever did that merry-go-round or that carnival game where they spun you real fast and then the floor dropped out. It just presses against the wall.
and that presses out all the water. I've had knitters who've used salad spinners for this, for smaller items. Same general theory. You're getting out as much water as you can. And one of the benefits of this is it will take less time to dry. You might think, well, isn't this defeating the purpose? Because it is sucking all the water back out that we just tried to put in. If the fibers are damp, that is what matters. If they're soaked through, they're still going to have some of that dampness that is going to contribute to the blocking process. So again, we're just going to continue to let this spin away. All right, the spin cycle has stopped. So let's see what we find inside. There is my sweater. No water in here. It's already feeling a lot lighter, but I guarantee you this is still damp. Still damp enough to do what we need to do. Let's take it upstairs and lay it out. So these are the types of pins and things that I use to pin things out for blocking. The basic tools are T-pins, or you can also use quilting pins with the round heads. I try with either of these, any of these tools, to put them in at a slight angle instead of straight up and down. T-pins and quilting pins, I would put, general rule of thumb is no further apart than 1 inch for every pin. You still might have slight buckling between pins. More pins will be the answer to that if you're really aggressively blocking, which we're not doing today. My other favorites are the knit blocker sets by Knitter's Pride. You have the larger pins, the larger combs we could call them, which are all these in one pack. And they have 8 pins. And then you have some smaller ones with 4 pins. They're great for if you need straight lines. Although you may have some detail work where these are going to still be quite a bit more useful than the big ones. I usually use a combination. Okay, rearrange this a little because you couldn't see all of my measurements I was taking in the first video. So let's see how this one goes. This is my damp one. I can promise you my hands are a little bit wet here. And what I'm going to do first is I'm just going to gently lay it out. If you remember before, it didn't quite go to the edges. So this might have gained a little bit of room when I blocked it, or when I got it wet and soaked it. So what I want to do is make sure that it is not getting too much bigger. I have the measurements of the pattern, but I also have the measurements that I took before. And so I'm going to see if I can make those match. Now see, the bottom edge here is a little wonky. That's something that once I get the right length, I can pin. It's not going to be perfect. Knitting often means letting go of ideas of perfection. Especially like right now, my head could be cut off when I'm filming. I can't tell. So I'm going to take some measurements like this. This one I measured before. It was 21.5. Now it's 22.5. Here's the deal. If I didn't want the added length, I would gently push this up and down to make sure. This is where I have some control. If I want more length, great. If I don't, like this one here, let's see, the torso was about 21. It still is. That's fantastic. And it's all about just evenly distributing. So if I needed a little more space in here, I could gently tug to make sure I had a little more space for the girls. I don't necessarily want to get this too huge though. So again, I'm pretty happy with this. I'm going to center the top here. And because I know he wants to get on this, even though like
Pins are often used when you need to stretch it and make it fit a certain size. I am still going to use these pins because I know that he is going to want to sit on this. And I tend to put them at a little bit of an angle heading back towards my piece. And sometimes they need to go in just a hair, a little bit of a push to make them go in. All right. Again, I'm going to measure. I've got my 22. If I don't really want, actually, I'm happy with a little more length. And I'm going to pull. One way that this differs from a shawl is this is 2 layers thick. And this can happen. Get off. He's going to try to dive bomb this, and I'm going to pat it back into shape. And honestly, once it's blocked, if he gets on it, I'm not going to mess with him because I don't want him to dig his claws in. I'll just let him be on it, but not when I'm blocking. So I'm pulling on the underside to even it out, and I'm going to even out the top side. I do actually have to pay attention to the top side and the underside to make them even. And I'm going to try to make sure this doesn't flare out more. The ribbing might want to flare out more, and I'm going to pin very gently. If I have enough pins, I'm going to put them really close together. If you're using single pins, the general rule of thumb is to put them about 1 inch apart. What I like about these is I can just line them up. I have a lot of sets of these, so I can just grab another set if I run out. And again, I'm putting them at a slight angle back towards, they're angled this way or that way. This doesn't need much. I am not going to pin, with this guy, I'm not going to pin the edges unless I feel I really need to. I'm okay with the size. I don't feel like it needs any more growth. I'm going to check some other measurements. I might put some pins in up here. I'm going to see how far off these are. Yep, collar to cuff I had at 14 inches before, and now it's at 15. So it's grown a little. Honestly, that is not the end of the world for me. But if I need to, I'm just going to shove it back up a little. Make sure that this is lined up. I'm also going to check this measurement. I had 6.5, and that's kept fairly consistent. And I'm going to pin the ends of this. They're nice and level and even right now. And the cat is always interested in what I'm doing. I do want to try to make sure that this matches, and it does. Again, I can ease it up a little bit and pull it out. I think that's pretty good. I'm going to steal from over here. Make sure that they're level. And this may help my ribbing. Don't you dare, cat. Come on. This may help my ribbing lie a little flatter too because it wasn't before. The edge cuffs were a little bit curly. My cat loves the slightly damp fabric of knitting. I really can't keep him off without covering it with something that's going to make it take longer to dry. I think this is good right now. I'll pin it if I come back up and the cat has messed with it. But honestly, this might be all I do for this sweater. If I was worried about the shape, don't you dare, is if I pin these out, I'm going to get definite creases. I might anyway. To threaten him with something to make him go away. He will get on this. I will just deal. I may want to flip this over halfway through the day and repin it back to these measurements to give the other side a chance to dry as well as this side. My hope is in the morning, I can try this on for you and show you how it blocked out. And the light coming in the window may already be throwing off some of this video, but I think you'll still get the general idea. It will bounce back into shape in many places, and already I'm liking how the floats, how the color work is blocking out. It's not going to be perfect, but this is a chance for any puckering and color work to settle out. Again, I'm not going to stretch it or stress over it. I'm going to let it be, and I bet the cat is going to help. So, video evidence that I was just checking how the video was coming out, and Avi is already helping. Now, again, I am not going to mess with him. I am not going to mess with him because I don't want him to get startled and dig his claws into my work. I am just going to let him be. Since I pinned the edges down, if he gets scared and run off, it should stay in one place, but there might be a pull or two to deal with. If anything, his body heat might actually help this process. We will find out. Realize that I didn't draw anything this week, so let's at least write up to review what we just did. So, wet blocking a sweater. First, I would measure it while dry to make sure it doesn't get too big after you soak it. Then, soak it in lukewarm water for at least 10 to 20 minutes. I would flip it over at least once and gently squish out air bubbles a couple of times while it's soaking. Next, you want to remove as much water as possible once those fibers have been fully soaked. So you can wrap it in towels and press and repeat until you get as much water out as possible. Or, like me, you can put it in the washing machine on spin cycle. But only the spin cycle. Lay it out on blocking mats or whatever other porous surface, something you can stick your pins into, to the pattern measurements or your pre-blocking measurements, whichever you prefer. Since we're talking about a sweater, so we're talking about 2 layers, consider flipping the whole thing over once while it's drying to help the other side dry. Unpin it when it's completely dry. It will feel noticeably different when it is completely dry. One caveat on step 4, if it's larger than your measurements, you can stretch it out if it's smaller. If it's larger, you can also squish it back into shape. All is not lost if it's a little bit bigger when you lay it out. Right, moment of truth. It is the following morning, and that's my cat outside. And here is my sweater. I think the stitches look lovely. There's probably going to be a little bit of a crease here. If I open it up, it's not that bad. You can kind of tell where it was folded or lay flat.
I did flip it over around dinner time. I was filming early in the morning when I put it out, and I flipped it over around dinner time. It's almost like fluffing rice. You can kind of open it up, shake it out. Put it on. And let's see, I'm going to adjust this just a bit for me to stand up. Don't know if you'll see a huge amount of difference from yesterday to today. And remember, it's cropped, so my t-shirt does hang out below it, but I'm very, very happy with this. Move this out of the way. The stitch definition is a little crisper and cleaner. It doesn't pucker as much as it did before I blocked it. Might have gotten a little more length out of the sleeves. We talked about that. That's okay. Everything is lying a little flatter and is shaped a little nicer. So there you go, blocking a sweater. Now, this was a pretty complicated sweater. This still works if you don't have stranded color work. This still can work to settle your stitches. It will not solve all things. It is not a complete miracle worker. If you have some spots where some stitches are really funky, they might still be pretty funky. But this can help a sweater look a lot better. Please let me know if you have any questions. If I can do videos on other things, the next time a shawl is done, I plan to do a video on that one. If this one goes well, is received well. Please subscribe. Our subscriber numbers are going up, and that's wonderful. It's a wonderful way you can support our channel without spending a dime. You can always shop at sundragonartandfiber.com. Our online shop is a link off of there. Convoluted, hard to remember. Don't usually say it online, but Sun Dragon Art and Fiber can get you there. You can also support our work over on Patreon, and that's patreon.com/sundragon. When I say our, on this channel, you see me. On my other channel, Sun Dragon Sideshow, you see Liz and I talking about all our projects. I'm planning on wearing this in today, and we will chat about it there. May your crafting, as always, be filled with joy and confidence. I'll see you next week. How's the kitty doing, huh? You enjoying watching me try to figure this out? No comment. Uh-huh.